Hey guys, this is Greg Denning, and you are in the School of Awesome Sauce, where I share with you amazing stories and strategies to help you live an extraordinary life. Good morning, my friends, or good evening or afternoon, wherever you're listening to this and wherever you are in the world. Thanks for being here with us. Hey, I've got something I really have got to share that has been on my mind for so long and is becoming more and more of a challenge and a problem in the world. And it's what I'm calling the common denominators of disaster. And, well, I'll start out with a story. Like when I ended up out early on my own, and I was living in really poor areas and rough neighborhoods. And before me at those times was an almost constant and continual scene of domestic violence and crime and addiction, alcoholism and drug abuse and violence and gross immorality and inappropriate behavior and just this hurt and suffering and this wretchedness, almost like this self-inflicted suffering, and it was everywhere, and as I was out, as a young man, like it even started really with the very first time, in my own home, it was kind of, there was some struggles, the contention, the marriage and divorce, and we went through periods of time with a lot of poverty, even, around food stamps and some struggles. And so when I first left, we were living in Dallas, Texas, or near Dallas, and I got on a Greyhound bus and was heading to New York. And we stopped. This is the craziest. We got on a Greyhound bus all the way to upstate New York. It was insane. I think it was 15 or 16 at the time. And, those Greyhound buses, as they stop in all the major cities through the South and the East, man, they are not in the nicest of areas. I can't even believe this. To think about my own kids doing a trip like that, wow. But I'm doing that. I'm heading up there. We stopped somewhere. I think it was in Tennessee, somewhere in Nashville or Memphis, and we stop in the middle of the night. Just a bad area. And we get out, and I'm like, man, I got to stretch my legs. We had been on a bus for so long, and it was just filled with the smoke and nasty. So I just stepped outside. I was with my older brother at the time, and we just kind of stepped outside for some fresh air and wanted to just stretch our legs a little bit. We turned the corner, and man, everybody on drugs and alcohol, and this guy walks up to us, big, tall, black dude in a full pink tuxedo. And he walks up, he's like, you guys want some drinks? I'm like, no, thanks. You want some drugs? No, we're good. You want some girls? No, we don't want any girls. Oh, you want some boys? I'm like, nope. We don't want any of that. Like, we're good, man. We're good. I'm walking in. And since that time, in all the places I've been, I was living and surviving as a teenager. And then later on, you guys, as I traveled all around the world, and have been in some of the roughest places around the world, there's just the suffering that happens at that level, and it indeed is a tragedy. And there's no judgment coming from my part, because I've heard the stories of a lot of people and how they end up there and why. And if you have not read the book Les Misérables by Victor Hugo, please read that book. The unabridged is 1,462 pages of pure awesome sauce. Read that book and learn, and it means the miserables. And he details this story of how people end up in those sad situations and how they suffer and what they experience there. And one of his main messages was to help people understand what life is like at that level and how much suffering there is and a lot of hurt. And so I was surrounded by that as a young man, and I saw it again and again and again. And of course, at the time, I'm 16, 17, I couldn't have articulated this like I'm doing it now, but seeing it now for so many years, I've started to notice, and then working, of course, as mentor and a coach, working with youth and adults and people all around the world, I've seen the common denominators of disasters, of these incremental actions and choices and habits that lead to disaster, that I get to, because of the work I do, I get to see the train wreck at the end of the tunnel. And then I always, as I'm coaching and mentoring and learning and helping people, I always am asking, okay, well, what led to that? What led to that? How'd this happen, right? And you start seeing this common thread. You guys, I get to see and hear things that just break my heart and would break yours. And I want to help people. I want to help prevent these disasters. And I saw it again and again. And it kind of came along and said, these are the things I've observed. And honestly, I'm going to throw this out right now. Some of this stuff may not be very popular, right? Some of you hear this like, I don't like that. And it's not going to be, but I have to say it. I have to share the things that I'm seeing. And I get pretty adamant and fired up about this stuff because I see it happening and I see where it leads, and I see that at the end of the destination, people start on a path because, my friends, when we choose our path, we have chosen our destination. Let that sink in. When you choose to go down a path, it's going to a destination, and it often ends up a destination where people don't want to be, and they're like, hey, I didn't want to come this way. I don't want to be here. But when we choose our path, we've chosen our destination. And I see through the mentoring and the opportunities I have to help people and try to rebuild lives, and this experience I've had with people all around the world, I see the destination. And so I go back kind of trying to raise a voice of warning, like, hey, do not come down this path. And people are like, what's the big deal? Come on, you're making a big deal out of it. Don't worry about it. I'm like, no, you don't know where this goes. You don't see the train wreck at the end of this tunnel. And so I want to share some of that. And so as a young man out there, man, it's shocking how many times I was offered drugs and alcohol and immorality and opportunities for violence and crime. I mean, it's just shockingly abundant and so easy and so destructive. And many of the people that I was around turned to that stuff a lot. And fortunately, at the time, as a young man, you guys, I was desperate. I was discouraged and frustrated and hopeless. I did not want to experience life that way. At certain times, no family around, no friends, just lonely, cold, hurting, just absolutely broke, doing whatever I could to get enough money to buy another package of ramen noodles or a can of pork and beans, which was disgusting. I would just spoon it cold. Oh man. I think I had oats. I'd buy some oats because they were pretty inexpensive. So I'd buy some oats, and I'd have oats and little brown sugar every morning. Every morning. It was probably a couple of years that I had. That's what I had every single morning. And then, often for lunch, I literally would just open up a can of pork and beans and just shovel it in. Some ramen noodles in the evening or something. Every day, day in and day out. Now in my life, I can't eat the same meal twice in a month. Or I'm funny like that. I'm like, no, I like variety, especially because we've eaten some of the best food all around the world from Paris to Peru, and I'm like, I like variety. I want to change things up. But that's where I was at, and as I saw those situations there as a young man, and I was offered all these opportunities, somehow I saw, and I feel so grateful, and personally, I think God was just helping me see clearly. I saw where that stuff leads, and I would see people go, even in their struggles and their trials and their hurt, they would drink themselves away or do drugs or something else to try to assuage the pain and the hurt and the misery. And I get it. I understand why they're doing this. So that's why I'm like, I don't throw the judgment there. But luckily I was able to see that the end result. I was able to say, hey, you know what? When when they come out of that, they're not better off. And now they're adding addiction and vice to their problems. And they might be able to drink it away for a while, but when they come out of that, the problem's still there and it hasn't solved it. And so I've been thinking about this for so many years and writing about it. And I, luckily as a young man, I never touched it. I thought, no, my life is hard enough as it is. There's no way I'm adding alcohol abuse or drug abuse or violence or crime to this mess. I'm doing whatever I can to get out of here. I remember meeting older gentlemen and ladies who had been living that way their entire lives, and I remember thinking as a young man, I don't want to be in the same wretched situation when I'm 40 or 50 or 60. Like I'm getting out of here. I had the hunger in me. I had the fire to learn whatever I had to learn, to do whatever I had to do, to become whoever I had to become, to genuinely live a happy and successful life where, I'm best friends with my wife and raising great children. And I constantly thought about that. How can I create a situation where I have a family one day where my children never, ever have to experience what I'm experiencing, and to have enough for what we need and to live a good life. So I've come up with the common denominators of disaster. And I want to share a story, and this is powerful and fascinating. I learned this several years ago, and it was all about what happened during the kind of the end of the Roman Empire. And in the, early 2nd century, so the late 1st century, early 2nd century AD, there was a Roman poet, in English we call him Juvenal. And he was observing what was happening socially as the Roman Empire was coming to an end. And as I understand the story, there was some politicians who wanted to take over, and they wanted to control the populace, right? And so think about this. Put yourself in this situation. You want to rise up and be a leader, and you want to control the populace. You want to be able to say something and control the people, get them to do what you want them to do without kicking back, without resistance. You just get them to where they just kind of go along with whatever you say, right? And their strategy was what in Latin, I don't know how to pronounce this correctly, but I'm going to give it a shot here. Panem et circenses, which the direct translation into English is bread and circuses. And this term bread and circuses is this phrase talking about superficial appeasement. Like, how do we appease the people? How do we lull them into this state of kind of a thoughtless stupor where they do whatever, right? And Juvenal says this is what's happening, and I'm gonna read a quote directly here from Wikipedia because I love the way they put this. It says the phrase means to generate public approval, not by excellence in public service or public policy, but by diversion, distraction, or satisfying the most immediate and base requirements of the populace. Oh, isn't that good? Right? To generate public approval by diversion, which means, entertainment, fun, distraction, which we live in the age of distraction, and satisfying the most immediate and base requirements of the populace. Food and entertainment, right? By offering a palliative. For example, food and entertainment, in other words, bread and circuses. Right? And Juvenal was decrying the selfishness of the common people and their neglect of wider concerns, right? And the phrase implies that the population's erosion or ignorance of civic duty is a priority. In other words, their lives were totally out of whack and out of priority. They weren't prioritized. They weren't focusing on the things that actually really matter. They were spending their lives seeking entertainment and food. Whoa. And, some historians talk about, this is kind of one of the things that brought that great Roman Empire, would let it to an end, was just this constant need for cheap food and cheap entertainment. And if we stop, is this hitting any of you? Or you're like, whoa, that's our day and age, right? Because as long as people have food, and not even very good food, but they got cheap food and they've got plenty of entertainment, what happens to their drive and their ambition and their motivation and inspiration and their quest for greatness and excellence and their commitment to doing good things? That just gets all kind of washed away, and we end up, with that blank stare. And can you picture that in your mind, the open mouth blank stare? Yeah, you can watch somebody playing a video game or watching the TV, and it's almost like you just get so sucked into it, you're not even there. Like the lights are on, but nobody's home. You know what I'm saying? And so we get sucked into this. And honestly, guys, I'm going to say it right now, and it may not be very popular. Bread and circuses is one of the biggest and most prominent common denominators of disaster. And in so many situations, it's the bread and circuses that led to destroyed lives. It's just constantly seeking entertainment. And especially to the neglect of habits and actions and choices and attitudes that lead to happiness and success. But it's just constantly being replaced or consumed by bread and circuses, by entertainment. Think about this. Think how much entertainment is controlling people's lives. And initially we're like, well, no, I'm just, we're gonna watch some shows, we're gonna play some games. But it's this constant, insatiable desire for more entertainment where if you read the statistics, my friends, they just blow you away of how often the TV is on in the average American home. It's many hours every day. And how much screen time people are getting. And now especially, it wasn't even like this 10 or 20 years ago, but from little children now. Little children are on screens from the get-go, and they're getting hours and hours and hours. And so for some people, it literally seems like this unending stream of visual trash. Whoa. And it's almost like that's kind of become the dream, right? That's the dream life, to have this unending stream of visual trash. And in my work with many people, that was the catalyst. It was unfiltered, unlimited, uncontrolled access to this steady stream of visual trash, which led to screen addictions, video game addictions, entertainment addictions, and then as I've worked with many people, that often leads to substance addictions and pornography addictions. And then the train wreck that I talk about, it's so heart-wrenching, where it turns into a deep depression and often attempted suicides. And you guys, can you see this? Can you see where I'm going though? Like, I know, like, I tell people, like, get rid of your TV, like, just get it out of your life, like. And I'm all about, hey, let's have fun. Let's watch some great shows. I love entertainment too, you guys. I really do. I love having a good time. I don't think anyone will ever accuse me of not having a good time, having fun. But I'm never, ever going to compromise my standards or allow myself or my family, my children, to let bread and circuses be the focus of life, the goal of life, the objective, or even a major portion. No way, right? Like, if we're going to have fun, we're going to have fun while we're working, while we're doing something productive and beneficial. Because that stuff just sucks you in. It really does. It just grabs your mind and your emotions. And like, notice it. I'm going to invite you to notice it next time you watch a show or something, especially the TV series they do. Oh man, they are so strategic about playing to human psychology and human emotions and sucking you into it and dragging you along one after another, and then introducing these wretched ideas. And so I want to encourage all of us to raise our filters big time on what we allow, what we consume, because you guys, always, input determines output. It always has and it always will. Input determines output. What we put in is what we get out. So if we're feeding our minds with trash, it's going to come out in our lives. Please don't ever lie to yourself and think that it doesn't affect you. It does. From the news to the silly shows to whatever you're listening to, even to this, right? Even this stuff, like everything we consume, it has an effect on our lives. And so we've got to really be tenacious and ruthless about having a high filter on what we consume from all media sources, music included, and limit how much that is. So here's my invitation for you. Kind of a little coaching session here, you guys. Here's my invitation: is like carefully evaluate how much time you're spending in entertainment, and track it. Track it for this week. Like literally do it. Get a little calendar and just track it, and just write down how you spend your time. Do it in 15 to 30 minute increments, and just track your usage of time. I think many of you will be shocked how much time it just adds up quickly that you end up spending on social media or wherever else. And then I want you to also jot down what it is you're consuming and do a test here. Do like a media fast where you don't watch any TV or movies for a bit, or change the filter and watch how you feel. I was coaching one client, fantastic client, but he just had this stress going on. He just always felt stressed. He felt fearful and tense, right? Always just kind of like, there was this tense feeling in his life all the time. And as I got into it, I'm like, oh man, he has the news going all the time. He's like, I have the news on. I want some background noise. I want to kind of be aware of what's going on. I said, you know what? Try something. Cut out the news. Just literally remove the news from your life completely, because the vast majority of it is negativity. And they're also playing to human psychology, and any kind of fear and negativity releases cortisol into our bodies. And that cortisol, we become addicted to it. And we get these hits, and it releases this fear. It's kind of the fear drug the body releases, and it creates so much, this just feeling of unrest and uneasiness and fear and worry and nervousness. Right. And so I had to remove that stuff, and he removed it completely. Whoa, like total transformation. Like he told me he felt so much better, and it just was more focused and felt happier, more joyful, and was removed from the negativity. And so like we got to remove this stuff from our lives. So let's remove the bread and circuses. If you want to have fun, you want to do some recreation, like write down a list of really good things that are bonding and connecting. So instead of just going and watching some lame movie that you regret having watched afterwards and you didn't really connect with the people you're with, go do some activity, go do a service project, go do something crazy fun and exciting, but that's actually using your bodies and using your minds and connecting socially, instead of just sitting there consuming whatever it is they're sending out. And cut out some of the common denominators. And again, going back to these common denominators of disaster, you guys, I see it happening there is this unlimited, unfiltered bread and circuses. And so for those of you, and it all needs to self-regulate. So those of you who are single or you're young, regulate yourself. Set up your own systems. Delete some apps from your phone if you have to. Put strict limits on how much you can consume and when you can consume it. Like when I'm coaching and mentoring, I say, hey, you hit your priorities first. You do the number one thing first. Like if reading is important to you, you read for a certain amount of time, and after you've done your reading, and after you've done your workout, and after you've done something to improve your skills and set yourself up for success, then you may have a limited time of good entertainment, right? And this is something you set up for yourself. And if your parents, teach your children this principle and help them, set it up as a family. Like, hey, we have alerts and alarms and controls, and we may have a limited amount of positive, uplifting, good entertainment, but only after we've done our first things first. And man, I promise it will make a gigantic difference. As I coach and mentor people, we run people through our monthly coaching program, which is the School of Awesome Sauce. We have these trackers in there. We have this 28-day challenge, and we have daily trackers and AM and PM routines and rituals. And we're going along, and we're helping hold this accountability, and we're sharing inspiration and ideas in our private Facebook group. And what we're doing is we're making this shift into this place where we feel alive, we feel productive, we feel excited, we're getting things done, and we're removing the toxicity, the negativity, and what Juvenal called, right, the distraction and the diversion and the appeasement of, the base needs, the lowest level stuff that's just like it's pulling the plug on our life. So let's get back in the game, you guys. Get back in the game. Make sure we're using our days to improve our lives, to become our very best selves. We're making the most of our time and our energy and our efforts and emotion. We're inspiring people around us, and we're getting in a space where, man, we are doing things and getting it done and really feeling truly alive. Let's get out, make it happen. Remember, awesome is always an option. Reach upward. Hey everybody, thanks so much for listening to this episode. I hope you got a lot of value out of it and found some things that you can apply to your life right away. Hey, I'm being totally sincere when I say I live to help you live your extraordinary life. So I hope you'll reach out to me if you have any questions, or let me know how I can help you in any important area of your life. And in fact, this podcast is brought to you by the School of Awesome Sauce monthly coaching program. Take advantage of that. Get in there. It's the best way to get a breakthrough to the next level so you can level up your health, your spirituality, your emotions, your mind, your relationships, your finances, business, every part of your life. Just get in there where you have a coach and a mentor. You have a supportive community to make things happen. So jump in there, take advantage of this, try it out, get in there with us, and level up your life. See you on the inside. Reach upward.